I was working with a client the other day and we discussed some specific companies that I thought were a good fit for him. He had taken the entrepreneur profile, which I've discussed in another video. We had taken him through a 1 hour consultation, built a really good business model. And I mentioned about 3 companies that I thought were a really good fit for him. And so he said, hey, you know what, Paige, those are great choices. I'm going to go home and I'm going to investigate these myself on the internet. And I kind of told him, I said, that's typical. And, when I do research on, my vacation or maybe a house or a car purchase or something like that, there's a lot of information out there I can do on my own. I don't necessarily need someone taking me through the entire process right away. This is a little bit different. As I mentioned in another video, you're not going to find a lot of information on these companies out there on the internet. This is an organic process. As I've discussed before, we need to have several calls with the franchisor. We need to talk about unit economics. We need to talk about marketing. We need to talk about training. We need to talk about support. We also need to talk to the franchise owners themselves, which I mentioned is probably the most important thing you can do. So there's a lot of work that goes into this. So when I sit down with clients, I tell them right away, you're probably going to need to put in somewhere between 5 to 10 hours a week into this research process. And no, this is not something you can do on nights and weekends. The calls with the owners, the calls with the franchisors, a lot of the research is done during business hours. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, can I afford 5, maybe 10 hours a week, which may change depending on where you're at in the process. Can I afford to take that time to do this? But it's really important that you do, because I wouldn't want anyone to make a decision simply by what they see out there on the internet. There's just not a lot of information out there. And that's really where I come in as a franchise expert, and my 4-step research process I take people through to help people make sure they understand how the process works. So I'd be happy to explain it to you, to a little bit more about my clients' experiences when they try and do research on the internet, and help you understand why it's important to put in the time and the effort to make sure you're making a good decision. So just click on my QR code, set up a 15-minute call. I can explain more about how it works, and we can kind of see where it goes from there.